Okay, what's up guys, we're back. So we want to start by creating our post controller. So let's just go to the controllers in our documentation. So this is Laravel documentation. So let's just look on how we can create a controller. So these are the commands for creating controller. So we want to create a resource controller that has all the functions for the CRUD application. So let's just copy this. So if we don't add the resource, it's just going to create a blank controller. But with all this, it's going to create a template for us with the functions that can be used to come up with a CRUD controller. So let's copy this. Then let's go to our terminal and paste it there. So we need to change this photo controller to post controller. Okay. And we also need it to be under API folder. Okay, so now we can click on enter. Okay, our controller has been created successfully, and we can get the controller under the app folder, then HTTP, then controllers. So here we have the API that we've just created with the controller post controller in it. So if we just go to the post controller, you can notice that there are some functions that have been created for us by default with Laravel. So we're going to delete this, the create function. We're not going to need this. So let's delete that. And we're also going to delete the edit function. We don't also need that. So we've remained with the index function that is going to be acting as the home. Then we have the store. This is where we'll include the codes that is going to store the posts. Then we have the show. So this is going to list the posts. Then we have the update. This is going to update a single post. Then finally we have the destroy. So this is going to destroy or delete a single post by ID. So let's begin by the store function. Okay, so on the store function, let's start by defining the input. So we define the variable input. So the input is going to request all. So request all, request all. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is to validate our data, the data which will be storing. So first, let's ensure that we have the package imported right here for validation. So we can say use validator. Okay. So let's come back to the store function. Then in the store function, we need to start validating our data. So we say validator equal to validator make. Then we use the input variable here, input. Then we can include the fields that we need to be validated. So title, this should be under quotes. So title, then we can set this to required field. So required. Then we need to also set the same for the body. So body should also be required. So having done that, let's set the conditions. So if validator fails, what should be the output? So if validator fails, let's pass that function. So if validator fails, then what should be done? So we should include that here. So the response that should be passed should be the following. We should pass success as false. So success should be false. Then the data should be validation failed. Okay, so what other thing we need to pass? We need to pass the message. So you can say validation error. Then we need to pass the message. So message, this should be in quotes. Okay, so the message should be what we can write. So the message will be validator. Okay, validator. Then it should pass an error message. So validator errors. So this will pass the error message. Then we can close this, and we can also say return. So right here we are returning. So it should return response, the response that we've just defined there. So it should return the response JSON. Then we can give it the variable response and 404. So if you see 404, this is the status for error. So it means that there's an error. So if there is no error, what should be done? So if there is no error, or if the validation is successful, then it should create the post. So we can say post equal to post create, then input. So this is the variable that was requesting for the fields. So input, then we can close this. Make sure that we have imported the variable post. So let's check for that. So we should say right here use app/post. Okay, so that's how we import the model. So this model is what is being reflected right here. Okay, so what else we need to do? We can set the data variable. So data equal to post. So you can set this to an array. So this array is what will be returned. So let's set this to array. So this array is what will be returned, the array for the post. Then we can set our response right here. So let's define our response. So this is what should be fetched back. So response equal to, so you can just copy this from here. So copy, then we paste it there. So we can set the success to true. Then we can set the data to data variable. So let's set this to data variable. Okay. Then we can set the message to read post created successfully. So it should read post created successfully. Okay, let's save this. Okay, so we have a little bit of a typo right here. So this should be response. So I want to copy this. Copy. then paste it right here. So right here, this is when there is no error, so it should return a response with the 202 status. So let's save our work. So right now we are going to the api.php under the routes folder. So this is where we are going to define our routes. Okay, so let's define it right here. So route, then since it was a resource, so resource. So inside here we include the URL, so post. Then we also include the controller, so post controller, so it's under API folder, then post controller. So this should be a backslash, so file save. So you can save this now on our terminal. Let's run php artisan serve. Okay, so we're going to use this URL. Let's copy this, then paste it on the postman. Paste. Then it should be /API/posts. Then this should be post, as we're trying to store data. Make sure that you are on body. Then you can copy this from down here. Let's copy this, or you can type it here. So we want to store this data. So let's try and send this and see. We are experiencing an error. The post method is not supported in the route. Let's check. Okay, going back to our routes, it seems that this was post. Earlier we defined a route with posts that isn't get, so let's just comment this out. So we are commenting this out. Then right here, let's put posts. Okay, save. Let's go back to the postman. Let's try to send this again. Okay, so hooray, that was a successful. So you can see success, true, data, the title, the body, they updated that, they created that, and the ID has been created automatically. Then the message post created successfully. So we were experiencing the error because we had not defined our routes properly, because we left an S right here. So that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we are going to look at listing. So we are going to look at listing, but in the meantime, you can just continue to play around with this and create new posts. So you can say new, then API, Laravel based API, course 2020. So you can just play around with this so that you can have multiple data to read from. You can say 2021. Okay, so you can say, you can just play around with this as you send the request. Then you can see right here the status of the error is 202, meaning this is a success message. So thank you. See you into our next video tutorial, whereby we'll proceed by listing. So we are going to use the get request in the next tutorial. Thank you.